If you're watching this, you know probably the single most frustrating question in custom home building is what is the real cost? I'm gonna give you very raw numbers for here in the Pikes Peak region, El Paso County, Colorado, for a true custom luxury home, $400 to $650 per square foot, and we're gonna break all those costs down right now. Building a custom home in Colorado isn't just about floor plans. It's about creating the lifestyle you've always pictured. We break down the process, the choices, and the real costs so you can build with confidence. I'm Chris Beresford, and this is Colorado Custom Homes. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if it is your first time checking us out. I'm Chris Beresford. I am here in El Paso County, Colorado, and we are getting back to doing videos. It's been quite a while. A couple years ago, we did a bunch of videos about custom home building, had great feedback, a ton of comments, got to help a lot of people out with building their custom homes. I know I didn't get to answer all the questions, so I apologize for that, but we're gonna get back to it. You know, life gets busy, work gets busy, things kind of change around. Bottom line, I just wanna get back to helping you guys out, kind of fulfilling that custom home dream if that's something you wanna do. Now, one of the biggest cost drivers for building a custom home is something that people honestly don't think about at the very beginning. We're all excited about the blueprints, the design, how big the laundry room is gonna be, but we gotta think first about the site that we're gonna build the house on. So here in Black Forest, there's obviously a lot of tree mitigation to do, some wildfire mitigation, things of that nature. Not every site is gonna be perfectly flat. The one we're on today is pretty flat up front, but it has a lot of topography on the backside. So you've got to think about really three major things when you think about the extra cost that's gonna go into the specific site that you have. And again, this usually is stuff that people don't think about because it's just not that fun and exciting, right? They're kind of thinking about designing the house itself. So with site work, the three things that I always tell people you've got to be on the lookout for are, number one is just general excavation and foundation costs based on the lot itself. And that's gonna be largely dependent on the soils type that you have. That's why we always recommend get a soils test done before you buy the lot. But soils test, the soils type that you have, and then also what the topography is like. If you wanna do a walkout basement, you're just, hey, I have to have a walkout basement, but you have a perfectly flat lot, you're gonna have a lot of extra cost to try to force a walkout build onto that flat lot. And by the same token, if you have a lot that has a lot of slope to it, but you don't want a walkout basement, it might be kind of hard to get the backfill all done so that you don't have the walkout basement and you just have maybe just a poured patio off the back of the house. So thinking about the topography, where you want to put the house, and what extra build costs you'll have on excavation is number one as far as site prep. Number two on site prep, and this is pretty location dependent, but for us here on the Colorado Front Range, especially in the Black Forest area in El Paso County, the tree mitigation, or I should say wildfire mitigation and tree work and removal, that can get really, really expensive. So remember, you're gonna have to clear cut the site where the house is gonna go, and most insurance companies want to see a big buffer around the house itself with no trees. So it's gonna be a lot of tree removal you have to do, and it's not inexpensive. Tree removal has gotten pretty darn pricey, honestly, over the last few years, like a lot of stuff, I guess. And then so not just the tree removal for the site, but also you want to do a lot of mitigation around the house. It's all about wildfire risk mitigation. So trimming up trees, clearing out all the undergrowth, chipping everything that could just be easy tinder for wildfire. Again, that can get kind of pricey, but it's critical that you do it to protect your home. And then the last thing is utilities and driveway. So if you have your house and say if maybe you only have like a 30-foot driveway and it's set right off the road, your utility cost probably won't be that much and your driveway cost will be pretty minimal. But a lot of rural lots like this one, and when you're on acreage, and it's typically where you're at if you're building a really nice luxury custom home, is you're probably gonna wanna be tucked back off the road. You're gonna wanna have some privacy, right? So now your driveway just went from 30 feet to 600 feet, which means all of your utility runs that hopefully were at the road also went from 30 feet to 600 feet. So your cost goes up exponentially whenever you take a driveway from a short driveway and push it back through the landscape to get to the actual build site that you want. And again, these are just costs that a lot of folks don't really think about. They just kind of have this vision of, oh, I want my house to be right here on this beautiful lot in this sunny meadow, it's great, but you're 1,000 feet from the road and you're running all of your utilities and your driveway and everything else. So utility costs and site preparation could be anywhere. If you're in a planned development, and it's a flat build site, you might maybe say $10,000. But if you're in a rural site with a lot of tree work and you want to have a lot of privacy off the road, you could be easily pushing six figures, over $100,000 just for your site work. Okay, now let's talk about price per square foot. Now, this is a question. If you talk to any custom home builder, they are going to not want to answer this question. And it's not because they're trying to hide anything. It's simply because there's so many variables associated with building a custom home, especially when we talk about luxury custom homes, that it's hard to nail down, okay, what is this home going to cost price per square foot? And it's super difficult when you go in, first time a builder meets you and you ask about price per square foot, because I mean, honestly, they don't know what you're looking for. They don't know what your idea of high-end finishes are. You know, sometimes we just say, oh, I want nice finishes. Well, that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So again, it's not that builders are trying to hide anything or get away with telling you something. They just don't have enough information to give you a good estimate on what price per square foot is. So what I want to do is just, and again, these are estimates, definitely estimates, but I want to give you an idea of what a range might look like. Now, let's forget about national averages for a little bit because I don't want to speak too far out of my wheelhouse, but let's look at El Paso County, Colorado. So here on the Front Range, Colorado Springs area, Pikes Peak area, what are the kind of tiers, if you will, of price per square foot when building a custom home? And I say tiers because I think that it really, in my opinion, it kind of breaks down to 3 tiers when we talk about building a custom home. And I think this kind of holds true throughout the country. So the first one would be, kind of tier 1, where this is, we want to build a custom home. We have a lot, or we're going to buy a lot. We want to build a nice house, and we want it to be on our own acreage. It's maybe on a well and a septic, things of that nature. So it's not in a development. It's not in a subdivision. It's your own place, but you're not looking for the Taj Mahal. You don't need marble plated and gold plated everything. So here in our area, custom home building really is going to start. And I got to be honest with you, I don't know that this is really still totally doable unless you're making a lot of sacrifices potentially along the way. But I'm going to say for a 4,000 square foot ranch style home with the finished basement, you're going to be at that around $350 a square foot. That's starting out. Now that's not land, that's just the house. So that would put a 4,000 square foot home right around 1.4 million at that $350 a square foot. I think that math is right. So 1.4 for a 4,000 square foot home on your own lot, not the lot included, just the house. But that price should include some what we call allowances, and we'll talk more about allowances in another video, but essentially that there's a line item on the budget to account for certain things. So that's going to give some allowances for running utilities, putting a driveway in, your septic and well. If you are on a septic and a well, it's going to plan for some tap fees if you're hooked into municipal utilities. So that number is going to include some of those things. But again, you're not putting in a 1,000-foot long blacktop asphalt driveway at that price per square foot, right? That's going to be an additional cost compared to that base price per square foot. So I would say the entry tier, at least in our area, is going to be $350 a foot. And I'll be honest, that's going to be tough in today's market. So then if we go up to the next tier, let's call it $450 a foot or $425. That is going to be probably what a lot of people think of. Oh, this is a really nice custom home. So again, it's on your own lot. All the other stuff we talked about holds true, except for now probably, maybe we have just a little bit cooler design elements. Maybe we have, some timber beams integrated into the vaulted ceilings and things of that nature. Maybe the bathrooms are a little bit larger. The walk-in showers, maybe a dual-headed shower, things of that nature. Kind of what you would think of, like, man, this is a pretty nice custom home these people built. That home right there, again, if we do that math, you're going to be coming out about like 1.7 million. So about $425 a foot. And again, that has some allowances. Those allowances are probably going to be a little bit higher now too. So maybe you do have a little bit higher allowance for that little bit longer driveway, or you do want a blacktop driveway versus gravel. Maybe you have a little bit bigger allowance for your septic system because, things happen and sometimes those little bit bigger homes take a little bit bigger septic system and it costs more to engineer. So you just have a little bit more buffer built in there. So that's that mid-tier, what I would say a lot of people think of when they think of a really nice custom home on their own lot. So $425 a foot. I think for what most people think of for when they think I'm going to build a custom home, what they picture in their mind, that's the number that you really need to be thinking about. Now, again, this is on the Front Range of Colorado. I know there's other parts of the country that are less expensive to build. Like if we get to the Southeast, some parts of the Midwest, I know build costs come down some, but there's other parts of the country. We talk about the Mid-Atlantic area and the Pacific Northwest and West Coast. Build costs are even higher there. So again, this is specifically for our area, but it gives you a little bit of a data point of what you might be working with. Because again, some of us, myself included, when I first started doing this, I thought you'd build a custom home for 120 bucks a foot. That wasn't the case years ago, and it definitely isn't the case now. So those are the first two tiers. Now, the top tier, we'll call it tier 3. This is where, kind of just think of like you walk into a house and you're like, holy cow, this is a really, really nice luxury custom home. Now, not something like you might see in, I don't know, in California somewhere where it's just ridiculous over the top 20,000 square foot mansion, right? But just a really, really nice luxury home, great finishes in it. What does that look like? That number, honestly, it could be 650 and beyond. So there are multiple homes in our area that have been built and sold for around like that $650 a square foot. So that's a big number per square foot. But what does that get you? Like, what's the difference between the tier 2 and the tier 3 home? Because we're talking 4,000 square foot house, finished basement, $2.7 million, just the house, no land. So that's a big jump from kind of that middle tier. But what does that $600 to $650 a square foot get you? Now, the jump from mid-range to what really truly is top-tier luxury, right? You hear us talk about that, but we talked about the cost, but what does that really mean? So today, we're in a home by Alliance Builders here in Colorado Springs, and I just want to show you a couple of those elements so that it helps you kind of visualize what we're talking about. So the first thing, obviously we're in the kitchen right now, you notice they've got true custom cabinetry. So it's flush mount, kind of that European style. You don't have overlays on the doors. You have an extra thick solid surface countertop. And then one of the biggest things that you'll see in true luxury homes are the appliances. When you go into the kitchen, you're gonna see a different level of not only brand, but also what those appliances are like. So here, I mean, we've got a 6-burner stove with a huge griddle in the middle. These are all Thermador appliances, so super high-end appliances. And then you also see design details like this where you have the refrigerator and freezer built into the cabinetry. And then you also have a nice drink or wine fridge in between. So the elements in the kitchen are a big thing that change a lot when you go from what I would call kind of mid-tier up to true luxury. So some of the other things when we talk about that true luxury, just think in general design elements. So a nice coffered ceiling with a super unique light fixture, just a little step above what you would normally see. You're gonna see long doors, tall doors, just it gives that different feel that when you walk into it, again, it just feels like true luxury. Design elements like these I-beam beams on the ceiling that have that backlighting on it. So again, think the unique design details that you just don't find in those homes that are, while they're very, very nice custom homes, they're just not quite true luxury. Here are 3 things that often get forgotten about, and I kind of call them hidden expenses, honestly, because they're just things that, again, nobody's trying to hide these, but people just don't really think about them a whole lot. And one of the first things is permits and fees. So depending on what municipality you're in, and this is usually controlled at the city or local municipality level when we talk about fees and permitting. So when we talk about permits for the house, so here in the El Paso County area with the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department, you might have, I don't know, let's pick a number that's pretty close, $5,000 in permits. So those are your build permit, your septic, all the stuff you have to do, kind of the money that you have to pay to get all your stuff approved through the local authority. About $5,000 roughly. In some areas, that's going to be a lot more. I've heard people say in some areas that alone is like $30,000 to $40,000. And then there's other areas, like if you were to build in Custer County, Colorado, Westcliff area, you don't really have to do much of anything to get a permit. You just kind of tell them what you're doing and you do what you're doing. So very, very dependent on area. But I think just knowing that that's a cost associated with building that a lot of people forget about. And again, this isn't on you to know specifically, oh, here's what I'm gonna have to cost, it's gonna cost to get my permits, but it's probably gonna be a line item from the builder. And again, you just don't wanna be caught off guard when you're chatting with the builder, or maybe you're interviewing different builders, talking about these different costs. Just know that permitting is a cost that has to get paid no matter who the builder is. So it's gonna be a fixed cost for whoever you decide to work with. Along kind of in that same vein is fees. So just kind of, in general, I mentioned one earlier that's probably a pretty good example, and that's the utility tap. So usually water and sewer taps. So if you're in a very rural environment or a pretty rural environment on a little bit bigger piece of land, so in our area, 2.5 acres or more, you're probably gonna be on a well and a septic system, like an on-site wastewater treatment system, a septic system. So if that's the case, there's no fees associated with tying into anything for that. But if you're building a custom home on a lot that's closer into municipality or on a little bit smaller lot where there are public services, you're gonna have to tie into their water and their sewer lines. and they charge for that, obviously. So there's what's called a tap fee associated with that. And just as an example, here in our area, Monument, Colorado, little small town just north of Colorado Springs along the Front Range here, their tap fees can be upwards of $40,000. So that's a big line item if you're just not really thinking about, oh, I've got to tap in to get that. I thought I would just, it's in an area that has water in all the other houses, so I thought I'd just pay my water bill. True, you're going to do that, but you're also going to pay tens of thousands of dollars to tap into those lines that they have. Now, that's going to cover the fees and then also the work to get the excavation, things like that, to actually get the water lines tied in. So permits and fees, that's a big one that I feel like a lot of people forget about. The next one is architecture and engineering. Now, this is one that you can kind of spend as much or as little as you want to on this within reason, but I say don't scrimp on this. It is a whole lot cheaper to spend money on design and architecture upfront on paper and 3D modeling to figure out if there's something you want to change, because it really, really stinks when you kind of scrimped on that a little bit. You thought it was okay. You kind of wanted to do one more iteration back and forth with the architect, but you decided not to save some money. And now the house is getting framed and you step into that room that you weren't really sure about and you're like, holy cow, I hate this. This is not nearly big enough. There's either going to be three things. Number one, you can't do anything about it. Number two, you can change it, but it's going to cost you a lot. Or three, you just got to deal with it because you can't afford the cost. So you can actually save yourself a lot of money by doing more design and architecture work up front, which comes at a cost, but it's going to be a whole lot cheaper to figure it out on paper versus trying to change something after the house is being built. So this, you could be talking 4 to 10% of your budget, maybe even a little bit more, depending on how complex your house is, how big the house is, who the architect is that you're using. So it can be a big chunk of your budget that a lot of people don't think about, but it's worth the money. And I have one extra caveat here. This little bonus tip for you is you will go online. If you're going to build a custom home, everybody does it. You go online, you start looking for plans. You're like, oh man, I found this plan. I love that floor plan. And I can get that plan for $150. That's not actually going to work. You can maybe you could spend the $150 and get an idea of what it is, and you will get some blueprints, but they're not going to be buildable blueprints, most likely for your municipality. You're going to want to change something. So then there's going to be a designer and an architect involved anyway to make some of those changes. So just don't have in your mind that, oh, I'm going to spend $150 and I'm going to have a plan set that I can take to my county office to get permits to build with. That's not what's going to happen. You're going to spend the money. You do that to get ideas and see if you like it, and maybe as a starting point, but just know there's still going to need to be a designer, architect / engineer involved in the process before you actually have a buildable plan set that you can go get permits with. The last one is construction loan interest. Now, if you're in a fortunate position where you're just building cash, you don't have to worry about this. Most of us, though, are going to take a construction loan out to build the property. So we kind of talked about this in another video about how you finance a custom home in today's market. And whichever way you decide to do it, again, unless you're building cash, you're going to have a construction loan up front. And that construction loan, I really equate it to more, think of it like a line of credit. So it's a line of credit that the bank has agreed to give you, and you're going to take draws off of it as you have to pay your builder so he can pay his trades. Now that line of credit, like I said, interest only, and that balance is going to continue to build as you get farther along in the process. So day zero, $0 balance. Whenever they start doing excavation work, probably going to have like about a $75,000 balance on it. And that's going to work all the way up until your project is almost complete. And then you likely will have a 7-figure balance on that interest-only loan. But that interest-only payment can get pretty big. So you, at the beginning, may have an interest-only payment of, say it's $2,500 a month. It's not pocket change, but it's doable. But by the time you get done with this, if you're at a 7-figure loan, you're going to have a monthly interest-only loan payment of probably 5 figures. You're going to be over $10,000 most likely at the end as you get closer to the end of your build. So if you figure it's a 12-month build cycle and you average, say, $5,000 every month, if it were to average out of that, that's still $60,000 as kind of a line item that you need to have for your personal budget. Now, that's not a budget that the builder's worried about because you're the one that has to pay your bill. But just keep that in mind that as you're going to go through this build process, that interest payment on that construction loan is going to get a lot bigger as you get closer to the end. And it could be $50,000 to $100,000 in interest-only payments that you're going to make on that loan throughout the build process. So again, it's just a fee that a lot of people don't think of as they go through the build process and really think about what this is going to cost them in 2026. Yes, the cost to build a true luxury custom home in 2026 is expensive, but it is predictable if you think about some of the things that we mentioned: site preparation, really full expectations on what your level of finishes is going to be at the end of the day, and then also some of those hidden fees. Now, one of the biggest keys is to find someone that's knowledgeable to help navigate through the custom build process with you and to help you work with a builder that has truly transparent pricing. Make sure you grab our Colorado Custom Home Builder interview checklist below. It has all the exact questions you want to make sure you ask. And if this has been helpful, hey, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next one.